Have you ever watched a TED Talk?
If you have, you're going to want to stick around. It's about to get crazy.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Whether you've been married 1 or 20 plus years, at some point you realize you married into crazy. And that's what our show is all about. If your marriage or relationship is compassionate, real, accountable, zealous and yielding, or just plain crazy, Snooks and Lovey offer love, laughter, and a dose of reality as they unpack this thing called marriage. Sit back, relax, and get your ear hustle on. It's time to start the conversation.
Welcome back to another episode of the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey.
I'm Snooks.
And I'm Lovey. And
we are married into crazy.
That we are. You know, this is going to be a very short one. We're just doing a quick intro because this time it's not going to be us talking.
Mm-mm. You know how he always threatens to take the microphone away from me?
That's not the case. No, I was invited to do a TEDx talk a few years ago, and we've never really made it public. But this time, I think it's time. With a lot of things that are going on right now, if you ever found yourself really just addressing, you know, what you think is the problem, what you think is the symptom, if you will, we have a tendency to address symptoms without getting to the root cause of the real problem. Mm-hmm. And this TEDx talk that I did really addresses that.
Right. But before we go into that, we just want to make sure that you subscribe and review on YouTube and wherever else that you listen to your podcasts on all platforms.
Yeah, actually. And on top of that, for all the things that we do to lift up your marriage, go to marriedintocrazy.com and you'll see all the different ways, whether it's clothing like we have right here in between us.
Or that we have on our bodies.
Amen. There's a variety of ways. Go there, check it out. Look around the website. Again, that's marriedintocrazy.com. Mm-hmm. But I also want to call out that the book that we happen to be co-authors of, it's called Out of Order. It's about addressing the grief journey as well as the healing and hope that comes with having tragic losses like we did with the loss of our son. This upcoming Friday on May 31st, there's going to be a Amazon sale. We're launching on Amazon, the book, and it's going to be 99 cents for one day, for just 24 hours.
So that's 99 cents for the ebook.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that.
For
Definitely.
The ebook.
For the ebook, 99 cents, look up Out of Order, and you'll see a rose that's on the cover itself. And it's addressing, it's a bunch of different authors that are talking about their different journeys as it came to dealing with the types of trauma that we've dealt with in losing a child when you lose a kid out of order. Mm-hmm. So with that said, we hope you enjoy this TEDx talk. Share it with a friend. Share it with as many people as you possibly can. Definitely, like Snook said, subscribe so that you don't miss any of our episodes. All right, until the next time.
Be blessed.
If you can hear my voice right now, I'm going to ask you to do me a huge favor. Doesn't matter if you're standing, walking around, sitting, or rushing back to your seat. I need everyone to stop what you're doing, raise your hands, and place them over your heart. Okay, good. I love this. Now, apply pressure. Push as hard as you can. Push as if your life depends upon it. Good. Okay, put your hands down. In a few moments, I'm going to make a motion where I'm going to raise my hands and place them over my heart. And I'm going to ask that each and every one of you do the exact same thing, just like you did right now. But right now, relax. It's April 9th, 1996. And I just asked my girlfriend to marry me. 5 days later, as we were relaxing in her home, an intruder broke in. Somehow, her long-estranged ex-boyfriend found out that we got engaged. He forced his way into her home, and he attacked her with such force that when he pushed her, she fell and hit her head on the hardwood floor, not far from where I was standing. I ran down the hallway to confront him, and naturally, we began to fight. We went back and forth, and I was pulled off of him multiple times. But that last time that I was pulled off of him, there was a slap across my chest. Join me. When I looked on the ground, I could see blood. Actually, there was a lot of blood. And I remember thinking to myself, even though we were fighting, there shouldn't be this much blood. I looked up and saw that the assailant's arms were raised above his head. And in one of his hands, there was a serrated steak knife. That's when my fiancée turned to me and she said, "Move your hands." It was in that moment that we saw a stream of blood pulsing out of my chest in coordination with my heartbeat. Psh, psh, psh. I knew immediately that he had either hit an artery or done something even worse. The assailant took off running out of the house, and a whole cascade of events began to take place. The following morning, he was captured, and he went to jail. Now, that happened a while ago. And as you can tell, I'm standing here before you right now sharing the story. So everything must have worked out well. And it did, by the grace of God and a whole lot of prayer. And 1 year later, my fiancée and I were married. Now, this is the part in the story where you cue the Disney movie, right? You cast my wife as Tiana and Snow White, all rolled into one. And of course, you would cast me as Prince Charming with a little bit of Beast. I mean, think about it. I fought for my love, got stabbed in the heart, had not one but 2 open heart surgeries, and I got the girl. So the Disney camera would then pan to the backyard. Use your imagination. You could see us in the backyard talking with the animals in typical Disney fashion, right? So I'm having a conversation with the birds and the chipmunks and the squirrels, whatever animals walked up. And if you looked a little bit harder, I might even be flipping some burgers on the grill as the 7 dwarfs go walking by, whistling on their way to work. But that's not quite what happened. Well, I did go in the backyard and I attempted to speak to some animals, but in my defense, the hospital gave me some really good medication when I was in recovery. No, you see, life intervened. 4 years later, we were celebrating our wedding anniversary over dinner at a really nice restaurant called Morton's Steakhouse. Have you ever been to one? It's a really nice place, and if you're not familiar, it's very similar to a Ruth's Chris or a Fleming Steakhouse. And somewhere between the loaded baked potato and the cream spinach, my wife looked across the table into my eyes, and she said, "I want a divorce." I know what you're thinking. You got dressed up for that? Look, that's where we were, but I had to ask myself, how did we get here? Sure, there were challenges over the first 4 years of our marriage. Have you ever been to an awkward family gathering? Well, our family interactions were challenging, to say the least. You see, there were key members of my family that still blame my wife for that stabbing incident all those years later. To give you an idea of what my wife was going through, imagine yourself sitting in the passenger seat of a vehicle and you're in a horrific car accident. Now, nothing happened to you physically, but the driver. The driver was in critical condition and had to undergo a series of life-saving procedures in order to stay alive. And the very people that you needed to turn to for comfort and support, they blamed you for the accident. See, that's what my wife was experiencing. And to make matters worse, her husband, me, I didn't protect her from that slow drip of mental abuse that took place over that time period. But we continued to do couple things. We argued like couples do. We'd fight, we'd kiss, and we'd make up. We even went on date nights when things got a little too intense. There were things that needed to be addressed, talked about, discussed. But we brush it under a rug or we push it aside and not deal with it at all. What I'm trying to tell you is that our relationship had symptoms. Symptoms that many relationships have. But don't forget, we're that couple that was supposed to ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. Yet, Here we were dealing with the symptoms of discontent and ignoring this disease that was growing within our relationship. And whenever I say that word disease, I can't help but think about the medical community at large. It's been said that the medical community has a tendency to focus on symptoms as opposed to dealing with the underlying condition. Think back to 2019. The number one cause of death in the United States was heart disease. There were greater than 650,000 deaths that occurred that year because of that particular ailment. And what are the common symptoms? There's chest pain, there's shortness of breath, and additional pain in the upper abdomen, the neck, the jaw, and the back. If a patient showed up at an ER or an urgent care and they were professing to have some of these pain manifestations, the common thing to do would be give them some pain medication or prescribe some physical therapy. If another patient showed up at a different place and they had shortness of breath, it wasn't uncommon for that particular type of patient to receive any number of inhalers or receive some respiratory therapy. The medical community is so preoccupied, at least it's been said, to be so focused on these symptoms, that low-hanging fruit that's dangling in front of them, that many times we have a tendency to not catch up to the underlying cause of the root until much later. Well, the same thing happened to my marriage. Now, I understand that some of you are saying to yourselves, well, I'm not married. What does this have to do with me? Look, I don't want you thinking about my marriage. I don't want you even thinking about heart disease. The question I need each and every one of you to ask yourselves right now is, what is that low-hanging fruit that I'm preoccupied with and has distracted me from truly getting to the root cause of something going on in my life? Now, everyone at Johnson & Johnson comes from a variety of different socioeconomic backgrounds, education, cultures, and religions. We speak a multitude of languages across the 135,000 employees worldwide, and yet every single one of us has focused on fruit as opposed to truly getting to the root. There's a common challenge, at least within the United States, that many of us have credit cards, right? And we have a tendency to take these credit cards and we'll max them out and then we'll pay them off. But we'll do it over and over and over again. And then we get upset and complain that, our credit score, that almighty FICO score, isn't quite where we want it when it comes time for us to go out and try and get a home or a car loan. Now, you see, in this situation, that symptom or that fruit is that FICO score. We're so preoccupied and focused on that realistically, the root that we should be addressing might be our belief system as it pertains to money or how we deal with our finances. Now, my wife is here with us today. I call her Snooks. And she's probably going to get upset because I have a tendency to use us as examples all the time. But we argued over money for years, or so we thought. You see, we put money in the bank, pay our bills, and then she would go shopping and buy whatever she wanted. I would complain about her shopping, and then she would complain about me being a tightwad, anybody that would listen. After implementing a simple two-step process, we discovered that we really weren't arguing about money at all. It just happened to be that low-hanging fruit that we seemed to fixate upon. No, you see, we dug deeper, and we discovered that there were roots that we needed to address. When Snooks went shopping, it represented a sense of freedom for her. When I put money in the bank, it represented security to me. So in all actuality, when we were fixated and preoccupied with that symptom, that low-hanging fruit that ultimately was spending money, subconsciously what was happening was Snooks was fighting for her freedom, and I in turn was defending our security. Now, each of you have your own symptom or fruit that is showing up periodically in your careers or somewhere in your life. It may be showing up for some of you when it comes to career progression. Getting passed over multiple times when there's opportunities for advancement, exposure within the company, or inclusion when it comes to special projects. For some of you, it might be showing up in your finances. And you're discovering that there's more month than there is money. Perhaps it's showing up in your faith, your health, or in your relationships. But how do you know if you're staring at your fruit or truly getting to your root? Remember I mentioned there was a two-step process? Well, the very first step is checking in. Now, in the past and to this very day, my wife and I, we'll just randomly ask each other, are we good? Is there anything that we need to talk about? Now, don't ask the question if you're not prepared to hear the answer. For some of you, that might be a conversation you need to have with your manager or your director. So why am I getting passed over for these promotions? What is it about me that's preventing me from being included in some of these special projects? Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with your tax consultant or your financial advisor. What is it about my daily fiscal habits that's preventing me from reaching these financial goals that I'm setting for myself? Maybe, just maybe, it's a conversation that needs to be had with your pastor, your doctor, or someone you're in a significant relationship with, like your spouse or even your child. The second step is to be accountable to whatever you discover in that check-in. You see, for us, it's a marriage thing. But for you, it might be that conversation you need to have. You know, we all get to a point where we think we're really addressing what needs to be addressed, and we're ignoring the thing that's supposed to be addressed. The two steps that I mentioned, they're universal and can be applied to any area of your life. And they work. So much so that, remember that dire situation I mentioned about my wife and I were facing a divorce? Well, we completely turned that thing around, and we're going to be celebrating our 25-year anniversary this upcoming January. I know. We're excited, and I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We are not going back to Morton's. Listen, don't wait to be passed over for another promotion, to not hit the financial goals that you've been setting for yourself, and don't wait for your significant other or your spouse to ask for a breakup or a divorce. Give it some thought and determine if you're staring at some fruit that's distracting you from starting to dig and truly get to your root. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Married into Crazy podcast with Snooks and Lovey. Please like, subscribe to, and review the show wherever you access it, and tell a friend about us. Visit marriedintocrazy.com and see how Snooks and Lovey can bless your marriage directly.